Okay, good morning. This morning, Lieutenant Governor Kim Reynolds and I want to use this opportunity to urge preparation by all Iowans as we approach the storm season. Iowa knows all too well the horrors that were recently experienced in other states in this country during the recent tornadoes and storms. Like them, Iowans are resilient and pull together in times of emergencies. I was able to see this firsthand last year with the Mapleton tornado and the Missouri River flooding events. However, we often highlight and praise the response efforts without fully recognizing the enormous preparation that goes into avoiding injuries when we have these kinds of storms and events. In Mapleton, an acutely aware population took shelter, and despite the fact that half the town was leveled, there were no fatalities. In western Iowa, I watched as everything from teenagers to grandparents, people of all ages worked side by side, filling sandbags and working feverishly up and down the river to prevent what could have been the worst case scenario in many of those communities. With me today is the Administrator of the Iowa Department of Homeland Security, Mark Schouten, who will share other preventive measures that can ensure the health, safety, and well-being of Iowans in times of disasters.
Thank you, Governor. As the Governor said, the recent devastating tornadoes in Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana have made us all think about the spring severe weather season. As Iowans know, severe weather can strike at any time, and its effects can be deadly. In fact, if you look at all the major disasters that have occurred in Iowa since 1953, those disasters that have resulted in a presidential disaster designation, 51% have occurred in the months of April, May, and June. 21% alone have occurred in the month of May. If you add in the month of July, you've accounted for 65% of all those major disasters. As we do every year with the approach of spring, the Homeland Security and Emergency Management Division is in close communication with our response partners, gathering and sharing information and planning for potential flooding and severe weather threats. HS-EMD's job is to ensure Iowans and Iowa is prepared, ready to respond, and that we all have the ability to recover from flooding, severe weather, and other hazards. We began preparing for spring hazards in February by bringing together our state, local, and federal partners to discuss planning and response actions that could be put into place if flooding or severe weather were to occur. During a briefing at the State Emergency Operations Center in Johnston last month, the Des Moines National Weather Service provided a spring flooding outlook. It was provided to those agencies that are instrumental in flood response, including the Governor's Office, local emergency management officials, and several state agencies. In respect to flooding, there is good news. The risk of flooding of our major rivers continues to be normal or below normal. However, it's important to keep in mind that while it seems our river levels are very low, in fact, they are at normal levels. They've been high for so long that comparatively it seems as if they're low, but that is not the case. And while the state's major rivers are at normal levels, the potential for flash flooding along smaller streams and rivers and tributaries always exists in Iowa with severe weather. Regardless, Iowa is ready to respond. HS-EMD staff is trained and experienced and can immediately begin the coordination of any size or type of disaster response. Our local emergency management partners and responders are also very well trained and exercised and ready to respond as well. The State Emergency Operations Center in Johnston is in a warm mode and ready to facilitate a response by HS-EMD, our state agency partners, and our local county emergency management officials. In addition to working with our state and local partners to make sure we are prepared, we ask that all Iowans make sure they too are prepared. Governor Branstad has proclaimed March as Flood Awareness Month. HSEMD, along with the Iowa Insurance Division, the Department of Natural Resources, and the National Weather Service are reaching out to the public and the media to promote flood awareness and safety. HSEMD wants to make sure that citizens know they play an important role in disaster preparedness, regardless of the nature of the hazard and how it may be presented. Their role is to be ready to keep themselves and their families safe. So we want to make sure Iowans know that there are 3 simple steps that they can take to be more prepared for any emergency or disaster. Step 1, be aware of the hazards that may affect you. In Iowa, we all know we have tornadoes, floods, thunderstorms, hail, windstorms, blizzards, and ice storms. So it's important to pay attention to the news and to the weather reports. Local radio and television stations provide up-to-date information during an emergency. You can sign up for their Twitter or Facebook updates, and they'll come directly to your mobile phones. Investing in a NOAA weather radio is also a great way to receive weather and other emergency updates. You can program those radios so you only receive the alerts for your county. Step 2, make an emergency plan. Because you and your family may not be together when an emergency happens, knowing what to do, where you will go, and how to get in touch with one another is important. So sit down as a family. Plan for those who have special needs, such as elderly relatives or family members, and even neighbors who are dependent on health-related equipment such as respirators. They may need help in the event of an evacuation or a severe weather event. And since most shelters don't accept pets, don't forget to make plans for them. Step 3, make an emergency supply kit. During an emergency, there are items you and your family will need. This includes what you will need if severe weather strikes and you must remain in your home, or if you're required to evacuate to a shelter. So do this. Build an emergency supply kit by packing a bag with items such as water and food, medication, a first aid kit, a flashlight, extra batteries, a radio, food, copies of important documents such as insurance policies and driver's licenses, and blankets and sleeping bags. So here again are the 3 steps. Be aware of the hazards, make an emergency plan, and build an emergency kit. These 3 things will go a long ways towards ensuring you and your family are prepared. More information about these 3 steps can be found at HSEMD's website, www.beready.iowa.gov. Thank you.
Thank you, Administrator Scouten, for those helpful reminders. Today, we also want to take an opportunity to share with Iowans the availability of the N11 system. Nearly every Iowan is familiar with the 911 emergency alert system. However, there are a number of other important numbers that Iowans should know as well. These include 211, which informs Iowans with community information on food, shelters, clothes, and counseling services. 311 for non-emergency police and fire systems. 511 provides travel information. 811 is the call before you did number. To further inform Iowans, our administration has created a new website that is prominently featured at iowa.gov. You can find this information directly at iowa.gov/pages/N11. We believe it is important to use this news conference as an opportunity to remind Iowans that there are resources available and to be prepared for anything that can happen. And with that, we'll be happy to take your questions.
Questions first on the whole emergency preparation? Anybody have any questions on that? We do want to thank the media for the help that you all provide when we do have severe weather, because a lot of lives have been saved because people are listening to the radio, watching television. They get timely information, and that can really make a difference. I've heard firsthand from a lot of people when I've gone to disaster situations about how they were watching the news and they went to their basement because of information they received. So we do want to express our appreciation to the good work that Iowa media does in keeping people informed when there are storms or severe weather. Anybody have any questions on the preparation? Mark, thank you. We really appreciate the good work that your staff does, and although the river levels are normal, I would say low, we hopefully will avoid kind of the flooding situations we experienced last year. So, thank you. Other questions? Well, we're very hopeful that the legislature will choose to take bold action to reform Iowa's education system. We have been complacent too long. Other states have passed aggressive education reforms and put in place clear and effective standards and assessments and done a better job of improving accountability in education. We think that's critically needed. We want Iowa to be back again a leader in America in terms of student achievement, and we want truly to be world-class competitive. Obviously, we're putting significant focus on science, technology, engineering, and math, as those things are critically important as well to prepare young people of today for the jobs of tomorrow.
Do you have some criteria for what has to be in this package?
Well,
Big package, are there certain things that we absolutely have to have?
well, first and foremost, if we want to get a waiver from No Child Left Behind, there are certain things that need to be done. But I think the legislature should not take a minimalistic approach saying, well, what little can we do? We ought to instead say, how much can we do to make a real significant difference? And we've approached this in a very thoughtful and systematic way. We had, as you know, the Education Summit. We got ideas from all over the world. We had a lot of great ideas from Iowans, but we also had some expertise from other states and from even other countries. We've put together a comprehensive plan. We did a survey of everybody that attended and got their ideas. We then put the blueprint. We made adjustments in that. There are some things like, a new system of compensating teachers that we're studying further. But in terms of the idea of having a great teacher in every classroom and a great principal in every building, of having a more effective accountability and being able to make adjustments when we recognize students are not achieving where they should be in certain subjects. Those things are all real important. Also, the use of technology and encouraging schools to offer students more opportunity for dual enrollment with the community colleges or for taking AP courses and other things like that so they can move along at their own pace. I think all these things are important.
What has to be done to get the waiver?
Well, I think the Department of Education can probably give you the details on that. Jason Glass, 11 states have already received the waiver, but you got to have a state accountability system that's effective, and we don't have that today, and that is going to be critically important. So accountability and an effective assessment system, those things are, and evaluation also of personnel, those things are important.
Both the House and the Senate have changed how you, in your proposal, online education was set up, and there's been a lot of controversy about out-of-state companies coming in and the open enrollment. Do you think that you overreached in your plans for online education, and should it be ramped back?
Well, first and foremost, I think what we're saying is let's not be afraid of new opportunities and new technology. Iowa was one of the first states to put in place the Iowa Communications Network, and the whole idea of that was to offer things that weren't going to be available in many rural schools. And we still have challenges out there providing opportunities for kids. Maybe you're in a small rural school and there's only 1 or 2 kids. They shouldn't be denied the opportunity to take a higher level course or an opportunity online. So what we want is flexibility and the opportunity to tailor the education to meet the needs of the individual students, as opposed to the one-size-fits-all approach, the old industrial approach that was used back in the 19th century and the early 20th century. We're in the 21st century. We're in a different era, and we're in an era when technology is important, and the young people of today, they know a lot more than a lot of us and a lot of the teachers about the use of technology, and they're not afraid to be able to utilize that technology to help further their education, and we ought not be standing in their way. So what I'm saying is, let's recognize technology is not the total answer. You know, we've said a quality teacher in every classroom and having a great principal in every building, those are critically important. But also, let's recognize today's kids definitely know how to use technology. My daughter, for instance, who's a third grade teacher, she got her entire master's degree online. Every course, online. Yes?
About quality teachers, there's a bill before the House that would allow people to become high school math and science teachers without having graduated in education. Do you think that's a good idea?
I think there's a lot of talented people out there that are engineers and people with certain technical skills that could be really helpful. I can tell you from my experience in higher education at the Des Moines University, we would bring in adjunct professors that had expertise in a particular area, and that exposure to the students was extremely helpful. So I think there is a benefit, and I know a number of other states have done this, and given the opportunity, especially where we have shortages of well-experienced teachers in some of these critical math and science courses. So I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't know if you want to...
No, that's what I was going to say. I think we have a shortage in the pipeline right now, and so that's one of the goals of the education reform that we have in place, is to make sure that we increase students' interest in science, technology, engineering, and math. But in addition to that, we need to increase the teacher pipeline so that we have great teachers ready to educate children in those fields.
And you know, one thing that really inspires kids, if they can interact with somebody that's really done it in the real world, that's been an engineer, that's done some interesting, innovative things in the areas of science and math, that can spark an interest in more kids and wanting to go into those fields.
You said that your daughter got her master's degree online.
Right.
Yeah, now she's a classroom teacher. I mean, some teachers, maybe many teachers, are suspicious of being replaced with a computer. Has she weighed in with you on that?
No, she thinks it was a great opportunity because she was able to teach full-time and also get her master's degree. She also, I mean, my daughter, you know, she's my daughter, so I'm probably prejudiced. But okay, my daughter got her college degree, and then she went to school at night and substitute taught in California to get her teaching degree. And so over a 2-year period, she got her teaching credentials. She already had her college degree because she got her teaching credentials at night and also substitute taught, so she got some good clinical experience before she actually became, you know, a full-fledged licensed teacher. And then after she moved to Iowa and was teaching in Waukee, she decided to get her master's degree. But she did that while she was teaching full-time and did it, you know, basically nights and weekends. And she did it all online.
Right, but now that she is a classroom teacher, has she shared with you the perspective of a classroom teacher, not as a person getting her master's degree, about...
She's all for technology. My daughter and even I have a granddaughter that's in kindergarten, and she's into technology. Remember she said, Grandpa's the app for that? She was in the commercial. I mean, the fact is, these kids today know a lot more about technology than we ever did, and technology is a tool for learning. It's not the be-all and end-all of learning, but it is a tool, and we should not be restricting and preventing the use of these effective tools that can help enhance learning for our students.
Well, and it's just, you know, there's just still going to be a small percentage of students that are going to access this. The majority of students are still going to be in the seat with the traditional teacher. But blended learning is what we talk a lot about, where the teacher can do the traditional in-classroom teaching, but also have the opportunity to utilize the internet and technology to enhance their teaching. We talked about science, technology, engineering, and math. There's a way for students in the classroom to Skype with professors and doctors and engineers to ask them directly questions about their profession and what they need to do to go into that profession. So it's an opportunity for both. I don't think it's going to replace a teacher. That's not what it's intended to do, but there's a certain percentage of students out there that maybe can learn better through this method, and we shouldn't be afraid of trying that.
On Friday, the Lieutenant Governor and I were in Perry, and we did an assembly with a group of 6th grade students. But we've also done a number of question and answer sessions this year with students over Skype from different classrooms around the state. So, you know, there's a place for technology to augment and improve learning opportunities that weren't available in the past. We shouldn't outlaw or prevent those innovative ideas.
You're talking now about blended learning and augmented
Right.
learning with online, but in the proposal is, in the way that K-12 and Connections Academy are set up, it's 100% is online, and it's not augmenting as much as it is replacing. Are you changing?
Well, and I guess this is a decision that's made by individual students and their families, and so this is an individual decision. I guess that we're saying maybe it's not right for everybody, but for a particular student it might be. So I guess what we're saying is, and Linda, do you have something to add on this?
The only thing I would add is that in Florida, it's my understanding we're virtual learning, and we walk up
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Linda Fandel, Special Assistant for Education. In
Well,
Florida,
come up here to the microphone.
Sure, let's forget the microphone. Thank you. In Florida, it's my understanding, you know, virtual learning is on the books in Florida, and it's my understanding that less than 1% of children in Florida are full-time virtual online learners. So I think it's generally going to be an option for a relatively few children, but a really important option for medically fragile children or children who are bullied or who may have other circumstances at home that require them to be at home. And so I don't think we want to take that option off the table here. As the governor and lieutenant governor said, we want it to be, you know, a flexible option. We want it to be available to students and families, but I think it's overreaching to think that a lot of Iowa children are going to be full-time virtual learners.
Yeah, I think we got to be a little, you know, we've got so much fear of change. Oh my God, we got to do things the way we always did them, you know. And you know, this is not 1950, and it is a new era, and we do need to look at what works best and most effectively for each individual student. I had the honor of chairing a commission on excellence in special ed. And you know, for special ed, for years, we require an individualized education plan for each special ed kid. Well, I think when you look at general education, we also need to recognize different kids learn in different ways. So let's be able to individualize it, and good teachers recognize that, and are not fearful of this kind of change. And yet, I think we need to make it really clear, this is not going to replace the traditional way in which we deliver education. You know, number one, we've said top priority is having a great teacher in every classroom, having great principals that can mentor and motivate their teachers to be the most successful in every building. But technology is a fact of life today, and it's something we should not be afraid of. We ought to embrace it and try to utilize it as effectively as possible to help children to be most successful in the education environment.
Governor, the Iowa Senate has a planned debate on the online poker legislation. Is that something that the state should be regulating?
Well, that's a good question. That's somewhat controversial, and there's also questions about whether this should be done at the federal level or done at the state level. I've indicated an openness to look at and consider this. I want to protect the integrity of Iowans. I think that's the most important thing. In terms of regulating and controlling gambling in this state, our top priority has been to to keep it honest, clean, open, transparent, and keep the criminal element out. And I think it's critically important as we look at this subject or any other subject that the integrity of the state is a paramount consideration.
Was Michelle Reed not able to attend today? Was she not supposed to be here today?
No, Michelle Reed, first of all, I would say Students First has been, I think, very helpful in terms of education reform. And Michelle Reed, I think, is going to be in town. We may even get an opportunity to meet with her later today. We're very appreciative of the work that she's done. Under her leadership, Washington, D.C. made dramatic progress in improving student achievements in one of the worst performing school districts in the country. And so we're appreciative of her interest and support. As you know, last week we focused on education. We felt it was important at the press conference today that we would focus on preparation for the storm season that we anticipate is coming.
Great, thanks everyone.
Okay, thank you.